Hello everyone, I'm Jim Longworth and welcome to a special voter education edition of Triad Today, coming to you from the headquarters of Inmar Intelligence in downtown Winston-Salem, and we thank David Mounts and his staff for making this facility available to us today for this special program. Over the half hour, you will hear from candidates for Congress in two districts, the 6th and the 13th, and you'll also hear from one of the folks running for governor. So we hope you'll stand by for that. But first, a word from Todd Hall, President and CEO of Triad Federal Credit Union, who's helping to bring you this program.
At Triad Federal Credit Union, we understand the importance of the ballot box in shaping our future. The institutions led by state and local leaders form the foundation of our society. Giving candidates for office a platform to engage with voters on the issues that matter most in our communities is essential to the health of our democracy. We support Triad Today's commitment to voter education because of its importance in the political process. I'm Todd Hall, President and CEO of Triad, and we hope you enjoy this special presentation.
Thanks, Todd. Just a couple programming notes before we go forward. One is that we are taping this on Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. This is a day we could get the most candidates together at one time. And so you're watching this a few days before the election, but we taped it on October 7th. I mention that because as we taped this program, Senator Thom Tillis couldn't be here because he was contracted COVID-19, and we wish him well. And by the time you watch this, of course, he'll be back to full swing. Cal Cunningham is another story. He promised he would be here, and then certain scandalous things befell him, which he admitted to, and he sort of disappeared from doing media appearances. Even though he said he would be here, he did not show up, and so be it. When we come back, we'll talk with some congressional candidates. Now on this voter education edition of Triad Today, the newly formed 13th Congressional District includes the counties of Alamance, Caswell, Chatham, Davidson, Davie, Lee, Person, Randolph, Rowan, and part of Iredell. We have two major party candidates with us in this contest. Glad to have them here. Democrat Scott Huffman is a Navy veteran and a small business owner. He hails originally from Rowan County. Republican Ted Budd was first elected to Congress in 2016. He's also a businessman and resides in Davie County. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jim. Good to be here.
And did I overhear the two of you say that your families had played each other in high school football? Is that correct?
Well, at some point we played rival schools, so North Rowan played Davie County.
Against your brother and Scott or something?
Probably so, Rowan County for Scott and Davie County for me.
Well, I don't want any illegal hits on this, this segment here. All right,
we'll
great.
do our best.
All right, guys. Experts predict a huge surge in COVID-19 cases this fall. Should Congress enact a nationwide mask mandate? Ted, I'm going to start with you.
Absolutely not. Individuals are smart. We know a lot more than we did since February. Actually, we started seeing this in January, which is when I called for the first travel ban from China, which is where we saw the disease come from Wuhan. And out of 435 members of Congress, I called for that travel ban. The president responded, and we've been very smart. We've learned a lot. People can be sensitive to their situation. If they have someone sick at home, someone with a comorbidity, then certainly there's a sensitivity for a mask. But there are other situations where it's not necessary. And I want to leave it up to an individual's intelligence. And we can walk and chew gum as a nation. We don't have to lock everything down.
And I will say as a reminder, we mentioned throughout the program that we're being hosted today by David Mounts and his team here at Inmar Intelligence. And for the record, everybody that came in the building had to stay masked. Had a temperature check, had to fill out a questionnaire. Very, very careful here, very safe, and then it's up to the candidates if they want to wear masks during the actual interview. Let me go to you, Scott. If you're elected to Congress, would you enact a nationwide mask mandate?
Absolutely, because if the death of 214,000 Americans are not enough to convince this president and Ted Budd that we need to wear a mask, then obviously science and the experts should. You know, we've had too many people, when I travel through the district, I've had too many people look at me because Ted Budd and President Trump have politicized the idea of wearing a mask. A mask will help us stop the spread of this pandemic, and it's important that we do so. We can't politicize a pandemic. Too many people are hurting. I've traveled through the district, and so many folks have told me how they've been affected. In my own county, a husband and wife held hands as they died because of COVID-19. And almost 400 people in this district have died from this pandemic. Ted Budd and President Trump are a danger to our community, and we have to do everything to protect our citizens.
Well,
and that's what leadership is all about.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say anybody's a danger. The disease is a danger. Ted, since Scott mentioned that, I don't want to get into a back and forth thing, but you're not saying that the masks don't protect you.
No, it's not like I'm, one political flavor when I have it on and one when I'm not. So I don't believe that this should be political. We rely on someone's intelligence. If someone is, they have immunocompromisation, then I think we should, wear a mask. And if not, then don't. I don't think we need one right here. I think you should go through certain protocols. But people are smart, and I think we should lean on the power of the individual.
Speaking of health care, guys, do you support Medicare for all? Let me go down to Scott and try to alternate this a little bit and try to be fair. Scott, why don't you start us off? Do you believe in Medicare for all? Would you support it?
Absolutely, because if anything, this pandemic has shown the underbelly of Americans in our district who don't have insurance. So many people have lost their health care due to no fault of their own because we don't have leadership in Washington telling people to respect science, listen to the evidence, and wear a mask. So yes, we need to make sure everybody has health care. That way they can go to the doctor, get the services they need, and not worry about going in debt if they don't have health care.
Ted?
Absolutely not. I don't think it's actually merciful. Look, the bottom line, I think Scott and I would agree that we want more people to have access to really high quality health care at an affordable price. I don't think defining people below the poverty line is a very merciful way, which is a lot of what Medicare or Medicaid does. And also, a lot of great doctors that everyone needs access to don't take Medicaid. So I think it's kind of goes back to the lies of Obamacare, where if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, which just wasn't true, and there's more untruth in this.
Obama meant for it to be true, don't you think? I mean, it just didn't work out.
We know about good intentions and where those go.
Okay. Guys, Senator Schumer and Edwards have suggested that we need to have a forgiveness of student college loans up to $50,000. Ted, what do you think?
I think we need to be very intelligent when people go in and they take on debt. They need to understand how they're going to repay it. Is the degree that they're actually taking on debt for going to be able to repay itself? So I think we actually need to have better intelligence before people actually sign up for school debt. Look, I feel for the students that have a mound of school debt and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel for the way to repay it. And I'd love to have conversations with as many of them as I can. I think there are ways out. I do not believe in forgiveness. I believe all forgiveness, because I believe it leads to a lot of bad incentives.
Scott?
Well, look, if we can give tax breaks to the top 2%, which Mr. Budd represents, then we can help out those at the bottom who are struggling to pay their education. I believe we need to look at that and possibly forgive some of that, because we've forgiven so much at the top. Their debt, they've received tax breaks that have enriched them, while so many right now during this pandemic are suffering. I mean, how can 400 and some billionaires receive over $400 billion in profit during a pandemic when so many are suffering? So people are out of work right now. They can't pay their health care bills. They can't pay their they can't pay off their education. So we need to help them. And right now, we're not doing enough.
Yeah, it handcuffs a lot of people. Guys.
Jim, if I could respond to that, I think my opponent missed about 88% of the workforce, because 90% of people actually got a tax break. And it led to the greatest economy that we've seen in 50 years and the lowest unemployment. White, black, men, women, Hispanic, everyone.
Prior to COVID.
Prior to COVID, and I think we could do that again.
And actually, I just need to follow up to that. Ted Budd voted to take away over $350 billion of deductions for working class folks so he could pay for the tax break that we've given the top 2%. That's just wrong, and working class folks like myself are hurting during this pandemic.
Ted?
It's just not true. No,
yes, it is true.
Look, we can go in and do the math. Obviously, that's a problem during this debate. But we see more people having more take-home pay as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that I've supported. I got a great furniture industry. Look, this is an amazing area for furniture across our whole nation. A lady that owns a furniture business, she bought 4 saws. Now, these are not kind that you go to Lowe's and Home Depot for.
Right.
These are $250,000 saws because of that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. She was able to afford it, buy it, hire more employees, and we see that all across the 13th district.
Well, you know, that's great that people are able to go buy hardware, but what people really need right now are food on the table and being able to stay in their homes and keep their rent, pay their mortgages. You know, I've helped feed over 5,000 families in our district because you've refused to stay in Congress and pass legislation that would actually put food on the table. I urge you to actually listen to people instead of talk to small businesses. I agree small businesses drive our workforce, but people are hurting right now. They're struggling to pay their rent. They're struggling to put food on the table. And at least as a candidate, I've stepped up to help over 5,000 people in our district that you're not listening to.
Yeah, but Scott, also, if you help small businesses, they're going to hire people, and that puts food on the table. So just an observation. All right, quickly, guys, we have just a little bit of time left, and I wanted to let each of you answer this personally. What one thing did you learn from your parents that helped to make you a good congressperson? And Scott, let me start with you, 30 seconds.
I think the fact that my mother was a single mom raising 3 kids, working as a truck stop waitress in Salisbury, helped define my working class values and how I want to help folks in the district. And that's why I'm running. I'm running to be that public servant we desperately need, listening to the voices who are screaming out loud in our district that need help. And that's what I'll do when I go to Washington.
Ted, what did you learn from your parents that put you in good stead as a congressperson?
What I learned from my parents, and particularly my dad and the granddad that I actually never knew. He was born in 1890 and died in 1953. Never got to know him. But he had a saying, and that's just do what you say you're going to do. And that's his motto, my dad's motto, and my motto. And I've done what I said I was going to do, and I look forward to continuing that.
All right, I know you guys have differences on policy. I appreciate that. If we had more time, we'd get into it. But the one thing I really appreciate is the fact that we could hear what both of you said. I've made a pledge to the audience that we'd not get into this back and forth thing where people were talking over each other, and both these gentlemen respected that, and I appreciate it. On screen, ScottHuffman.com. Please check that out, learn more about Scott and his position, ScottHuffman.com. And for a radio listening audience, I'll also say TedBudd.com, www.tedbudd.com. Gentlemen, good luck to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back after this. Triad today. The newly formed 6th Congressional District includes all of Guilford County and part of Forsyth, including Winston-Salem. It's the first time in history where Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point have been together under one congressional district. With me now are the 2 major party candidates in that contest. Democrat Kathy Manning is an attorney and a community servant. She's a businesswoman, and we're glad to have her here. Her opponent is Lee Haywood, a businessman and former chairman of the District Republican Party. And I do welcome both of you. Thanks for taking time to be here.
Good morning. It's
Thanks
a
for
pleasure to
having
be
me.
here.
And I will mention, in case I did this at the top of the show, but we're here at Inmar Intelligence. Thanks to David Mounts and his team in making us feel welcome. We do appreciate that. All right, I want to get through to as many topics as we can, so you don't have to give real long answers. But the first one is experts are predicting another surge in COVID-19 cases this fall. Should Congress enact a nationwide mask mandate if you're elected? Kathy, let's start with you.
I believe a mask mandate is appropriate. I think the CDC guidelines have demonstrated that mask wearing stops the spread. It not only keeps the wearer of the mask safe, it keeps everybody else safe.
Right.
And we know masks are effective. We also know by watching this president what happens when you don't wear a mask.
Absolutely.
And he was unable to keep himself safe. He was unable to keep dozens of other people safe who were at that super spreader event in the White House.
Lee, if elected, would you vote for a nationwide mask mandate?
I would not. I would leave it up to the states and the governors of those states to implement whatever safeguards they feel appropriate. And I think the president has done a wonderful job balancing the issue of safety as well as the economy to keep both of them balanced in this country. I think he's done a wonderful job.
All right, speaking of health care, do you folks support Medicare for all? I think, Kathy, I asked you this earlier in the year when we were in the primary. Would you support Medicare for all if it came up?
I have the same position today that I had when we discussed it earlier. I believe we need to build on the Affordable Care Act. It took us so long to get that legislation through, and that legislation provided health insurance for 20 million more Americans. It is a great act. It's not perfect and it needs improvement. I support adding a robust public option. I support allowing people to buy into Medicare at a younger age. I believe our government needs to negotiate with big pharmaceutical companies to bring down the outrageous cost of so many prescription drugs. And one more thing, we've actually learned something important during this pandemic, and that is the value of telemedicine. Because of this pandemic, so many of the insurance companies waived the rule that they would not cover telemedicine.
Right.
And what we've seen is so many more people are getting health care through telemedicine. It's effective. It's also cost effective. It's a great way to keep people, particularly people with chronic conditions, healthy.
Lee, Medicare for all.
Well, I will agree with one part of what my opponent just said. I do believe telemedicine will be effective, and we should be utilizing it as much as possible going forward. And that's about all I agree with her with. She thinks there's some pot of money up in the sky that just rains down every day that pays for these programs. And any program that she implements as far as Medicare for All will be at the peril of 180 million policy owners that have their own personal policy. And what are we going to do with them? Are we going to just tell them, is it going to be like back when we have passed Obamacare, or when they passed Obamacare? If you like your health care, you can keep it. We all know that that was a lie now. Well, we knew it then, but you know, it's proven to be a lie. So what are we going to do with those 180 million people that are happy with their health care plan and their insurance? I believe we should go back, start from scratch, and try to implement a true market-based system for our health care and our health insurance.
Well, you two are a lot younger than I am. I'm on Medicare, and I can tell you it's a great system, and I'm not running for office, so I can just say it. I think younger people should have advantage to have it. It's not socialism. It works well for everybody I know who's on Medicare, but that's just something I wanted to interject. Okay.
Are you willing to pay 50% income tax?
Well,
are you willing to pay?
I'm going to do what a lot of the candidates do. I'm not divulging my income tax on this show. All right,
okay.
Kathy, would you like to forgive all college loans up to $50,000 as Senator Warren and Schumer have suggested?
No, but I do believe that we need to address the student debt issue. First of all, I think we need to make sure that our students are getting the best possible rate when they get their student loans. You know, right now, students can borrow a certain amount at a good rate, but then they're subject to the whims of whatever borrower they happen to get to for a remainder of loans. So we have this Byzantine system, and we've got 17-year-olds trying to navigate this system. The other thing I think we need to do is we need to expand Pell Grants. We need to make Pell Grants usable year-round. And I think we need to look at opportunities for student debt forgiveness, particularly for people who are serving the public.
Lee, what about it? What about the Schumer-Edwards plan to forgive college loans up to $50,000?
Well, I think it's a great idea if you live in a utopian world. When you sign that dotted line, you commit yourself to paying for these debts. And the education system, especially the higher education system in our country, has gotten out of control. Some of these universities have billions in the bank stuck away in their endowments. Why don't we start tapping into those and giving some of these kids some free education?
All right.
Why do I have to pay for these kids' education? Let's use some of these endowments and let's give these kids a proper education.
Let's go to a theme that hasn't gotten much attention lately because COVID has dominated the news, but that's assault-style rifles. If elected, Kathy, would you make it illegal to buy, sell, or possess assault-style weapons?
It is long past time for us to take common sense measures to address the gun violence that has ravaged this country. We know, Jim, that the vast majority of Americans believe we need to have universal background checks. We need to close those gun show loopholes. We need to ban bump stock and high-capacity magazines. And I cannot think of any reason a 17-year-old needs an assault weapon that was designed for war.
Lee.
I think we need to be careful who we issue concealed carry and gun permits to, but it should be made as available as possible if that person is deemed worthy and safe to own one. The Second Amendment should be protected in this country at all costs. For some reason, all the other amendments or Bill of Rights are protected with reverence, except for the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment is what protects all the other ones. We need to protect the Second Amendment at all costs. Now, if somebody is deemed, not worthy or a little bit off the track, we should make sure that they do not own a handgun, and especially an assault rifle.
All right.
But we need to go through the processes to make sure that anybody that's capable and is a law-abiding citizen citizen should be able to own a firearm and an AR-15, if that's what you're talking about.
Let's talk about the term limits for a second. I would, because of the Supreme Court issue up for us, I would say something about that, except that if elected to Congress, you really wouldn't have to deal with that, the Senate would. So let's bring it back to you, make it more personal very quickly. Kathy, if elected, would you support term limits for congressmen?
I would definitely consider it. And let me just say, we are living through such a difficult time with the loss of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Absolutely.
And it's a real loss for this country. She was a true fighter for equality and justice, and her loss will be felt for years.
Lee, if you go to Congress, would you vote for term limits?
I would.
Do you have a year in mind or a number of?
I would say maybe 4 or 5 terms,
Okay.
something like that.
The final thing I want to do, we have just a minute remaining, so I'll give each of you 30 seconds on this. What one thing did you learn from your parents that would make you stand well in Congress, do a good job in Congress? And since I've been going to Kathy, I forgot I wanted to alternate. Lee, let me start with you.
That's okay, I'm used to it. I'm a gentleman, ladies first, I don't mind that. Honor and integrity, and always tell the truth. An honest man doesn't need a memory. And if the good citizens of the 6th District choose me for their representative in Congress, you will always get the truth, and I will represent you honorably, and I look forward to that day.
Kathy Manning, what one thing did you learn from your parents, either or, that will put you in good stead as a congresswoman?
I learned that, actually I can't say I just learned one thing. I learned so much from my parents. I learned the importance of family, of faith, of hard work, of education, and of integrity.
Well spoken on both parts, and I appreciate again both of you doing this, because we've seen on television before where debates and things get out of hand, and the three of us decided we didn't want that to happen with people talking over each other, because nobody can understand what anybody's saying. So I appreciate both of you taking time out of your schedules to do this.
Jim, I'd like to wish you a happy 50th anniversary of your days in broadcasting.
Well, I appreciate
meant to say that up front.
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm glad I got that in.
Yeah, that's right. I started 50 years ago in broadcasting, and I think it's showing.
You look so young.
Well,
You must have been 12
Kathy
years
looks
old.
younger every year, but I get older. Up on screen, KathyManning4NC.com. Please check that out to learn more about her positions, KathyManning4NC.com. And also, please check out LeeHaywood.com, LeeHaywood.com for the radio listening audience. Say it again, LeeHaywood.com. Please do that. Both of you, thank you so much for doing this, and good luck.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Jim.
All right. We'll be right back. On the special voter education edition of Triad today, Dan Forrest is the current Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, the Republican challenger to Governor Roy Cooper in this year's gubernatorial contest. Dan is an architect by trade, but since 2012 he has served as our Lieutenant Governor. He and his wife Alice live in Wake County, and Dan, it's been 10 years since you were on the show. Welcome back.
It's been a long time. I didn't even realize until you said it had been 10 years.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe 6 years,
Yeah.
but it's been a while. It's great to
Yeah.
be back with you.
Well, you still look so young, you probably thought it was 8 years.
Yeah, maybe so.
All right, let's go through a few things here. I don't want to appear to be partisan one way or the other, but let me just say that there are a lot of folks that have been confused by the governor's orders at various times. You've been critical of him for maybe overstepping his authority, but what I want to get at is, if you were governor, well, first of all, how would you have handled things differently in the preceding months? And if you're elected governor, what would you do then?
Well, it's kind of hard to say exactly where to start, but if you started back in, back up to where we're about a month into this thing and you start to really understand what's going on and who's impacted by the coronavirus the most, we've known the same information for the last 7 months. I mean, obviously, COVID came to America in nursing homes in Seattle, and there was significant death in those nursing homes, and that's when everybody started to panic. At that point in time, the lead should have been followed in Florida, where Governor DeSantis not just locked down the nursing homes, but he didn't send patients from hospitals back to nursing homes. They were testing in nursing homes twice a week to make sure that people didn't have, and then they set up specific homes for people that did have coronavirus from those nursing homes. So you have people locked into nursing homes, still in North Carolina, where half of our deaths have come from. People that are over the age of 80 is still the average death rate.
Right.
We know who this virus impacts. So protect the vulnerable. That's what we should be doing. That's what we've always done in years
Instead of
past.
closing everything down.
Instead of closing everything down, protect the vulnerable and allow healthy people to get back about life and develop immunity, because that's going to happen eventually anyway with the virus. And so you have to allow that to happen with the folks that's not impacted. So the other thing that I would say that would be a big difference is, instead of pushing fear and panic every day, is to talk about the opportunity and the hope that exists out of this, that 99.999% survival rate for young people, 99% for people up to about 70.
Right.
And then you're at at 95% for people over 70. So there's a reality here that we just don't see played out.
I want to talk about masks for just a second, because I mentioned earlier in the program the protocol here at Inmar Intelligence. They hosted this show today, and we're grateful. We all had to wear masks to come in. We had to get our temperature checked. We had to fill out a questionnaire, and then it was up to the guests who wanted to wear masks during the actual interview. But here's my question. You've gone on record saying you like to see all the public schools reopen and not necessarily have the kids wearing masks. Isn't that a little reckless?
No, I don't think it's reckless at all. It's happening all over the world where schools are open. We have private schools open all over North Carolina with kids not wearing masks, and we've had no instances at all. We know from studies all over the world that kids under 17 years old are 6 to 17 times more likely to have ill effects from the flu than they are from coronavirus. Allow those kids to get back in the school and do what they need to do. If you need to protect teachers, protect teachers. If there are teachers that don't feel comfortable coming back to the school, then that should be an issue between them and their principal. And if there are parents who don't want their students coming back, then they should be able to keep them home and learn digitally online, but we should get everybody else back in the classroom.
If elected governor, what steps would you or could you take to prevent excessive force by police? We know that on balance, the police do a great job. There are bad actors in every industry, and when it happens to be police who are bad actors, it turns out to be tragic. What would you do to allay the fears of a lot of folks?
Well, I think, again, you spread truth and not a fear campaign related to that. The vast majority, the 99.9%, again, of arrests and issues that go on with police officers are not problems. There are some that do escalate. And when by the time the police are called in, they are law enforcement. That means there is the great chance that something will escalate. The fact that they're even on the scene means that there's a chance for that. And sometimes things do go astray. One of the things we do, really well in North Carolina is that we continue to improve our institutions. And whether that's a police institution, a government institution, in some other way, we continue to work on those things and make progress. And I think our police agencies as a whole across the country do a good job. The incidents that we saw in Minnesota, that was a union organization. This guy in the George Floyd case had, if I remember, had 19 different write-ups through the years, and he's still on the force. That guy should have been gone years ago. But
yeah, that policeman
the union
should
is
have been
protecting
gone.
that guy.
Yeah, protecting.
We can't allow that kind of thing to happen and not expect bad things to happen.
Absolutely. We have a few seconds left. What one thing did you learn from your parents that will put you in good stead as a governor?
Oh gosh, well, my mom was a mayor of Charlotte and a member of Congress, and she was just a fighter. She was a tough cookie. That woman had more courage than pound for pound than anybody I know. I think I learned just how to be courageous in the role of government and politics when everything's coming against you, but you're doing the right thing and you know you're doing the right thing. So stand for that no matter what the consequence is.
Up on screen, danforrest.com is the website. I'd like for everybody to check that out, learn more about Dan. A lot of us know a lot about him, but check out his positions on things, danforrest.com, for the radio listening audience, and hope you will do that. It's important to learn as much as we can in these voter education segments. We'll be right back.
It doesn't matter if your game's played with a ball, bat, puck, or club. If it's sports, we've got it covered. We're the sports hub of the Triad.
Well, that's it for this special voter education edition of Triad today. We're so glad you could be with us, and I want to thank especially Todd Hall and his group at the Triad Federal Credit Union for helping to bring this very special program to you. We appreciate it. Their website is on screen, trueliantfcu.org. Also, another shout out to David Mounts and his team, Saul and Shannon and Austin and everybody who made this possible at Inmar Intelligence, their website on screen as well. And thanks to the candidates for appearing. Now, we'll be back next week with another program, but I want to remind you, please vote if you haven't already done so. For all of us here at Triad Today, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you.